We're about to have another plenary discussion, and this is centered around building tomorrow's Lagos, leveraging innovative technologies for a sustainable city. And I'm about to invite and welcome the moderator of this particular session. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as I invite and welcome the founder and partner, Tech for Dev. Please put your hands together for Joel Ogunshola. Thank you very much. Can we sustain the applause till he gets here? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Also, to join him here in front, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite and welcome the chairman, Lagos State Science Research and Innovation Council, last week, Professor Olumuyiwa Odusoya. Please put your hands together for him. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite and welcome the from AI architect, Soft Scan Technologies, Finfolu Awotoye. Please put your hands together for him. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Also to come forward to join us for this session, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite and welcome the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology. Please put your hands together for Engineer Mrs. Ibilola Kasumu. Thank you very much. Can we make the applause louder for her, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite and welcome the Vice President, Sales at MTech, Hanatu Kasin Adegboyega. Please put your hands together for her. Thank you.
I think once again, the essence of the panel is to, as quickly as possible, explore what type of solutions or what type of conversations should we be having in the context of, Lagos continued growth. So some people would say it's fast growing. I would say you have some form of geometrical progression in terms of growth, population-wise, in terms of request on access to public infrastructure, amongst a number of other things. This panel would explore one, how do we see emerging technologies improving urban systems? As technology continues to evolve, what are the new things or new solutions that we should be looking out to? What type of policies and frameworks must the government adopt in Lagos to ensure continued growth and sustainable development? How do you also improve innovation research and continue to grow the local talent? I think it's already known that Lagos has one of the best talent pool in the country. How do you ensure that that remains the same and that practically grows? How do we ensure that this growth is inclusive, it's affordable, and reaches everyone? And most importantly, how do we, Kola spoke about partnerships. How do you ensure that public and private institutions can work together to achieve growth at scale? So I would start from you, Prof. Sir, if you don't mind. Would you say Lagos State at the moment is currently investing in the right type of research for the right type of long-term growth that he wants to see?
Thank you very much. Research has many dimensions. At last week, we are focusing on research that can have impact, other than research that is blue sky or basic research. So at the last week level, yes, but last week itself is not doing its own research. We're working with universities, and that's where we must bridge the gap between the policy, which we have very great policies. Lagos State is doing a lot with the efforts of Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology, the Commissioner, the Governor, a lot is going. But then there's a need to pull in more people and to then find the researchers, to train them, give them skills, not only entrepreneurs that need skills, so that the focus of research isn't just to become professor, but to contribute to problem solving and then to then see how that research can come into prototyping and commercialization so that it doesn't remain in one journal. So that is the bit that last week is raising the bar with.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. And thanks for sharing that context as to how LASRIC views research. To you, Folu, I think very closely tied to research today, especially around innovation and technology, will be artificial intelligence. And I think that's the new buzzword. And I'll potentially combine, two questions in one. One is, what practical type of artificial intelligence use cases do you think the state can adopt to achieve this hyper growth over the next 3 to 5 years? And how do you ensure that those use cases, albeit global, have local context and relate with our local ethical standards?
Okay, thanks for that question. Use cases, while I understand there are so many of them, I would think the product that was demoed just a couple of minutes before this session is a fantastic first step to what I would consider the first use case, which will be like having a fusion center. A fusion center basically is what some states in America do, where they define minimum data requirements from private and public sector organizations within the state that they must submit every month. So for instance, as a doctor, you have your clinical practice. Some states require you to, by the 15th of the following month, tell the state how many individuals came in, what were the complaints, the diagnosis, the procedures, things like that, number of deaths and things. So they get this kind of reports from traffic management, crime, healthcare, agriculture, everywhere, and it sits in one fusion center. And that fusion center becomes the lifeline of any AI solution because AI sits on data. And so I think that would be a very great first step, because if we have something, if we have historic record of floods in Lagos, we have historic record of education, healthcare, then we can make projections. AI can tell us, hey, it's likely there's going to be a very bad flood next week, and the state government can immediately tell folks, sit at home. And I was fortunate to be a part of something similar during COVID-19, where the governor of the state of Illinois gets reports on COVID-19 hotspots weekly. And what he does sometimes is the state governor's office just sends out a message saying schools in these areas should close down for this week because we are seeing a rise in XYZ. So I think that fusion center will be a very effective solution for the states.
Thanks. I'm sure that, Lagos State, there's a lot of work being done around a lot of things, but I definitely think that constitution of technology, really matters. So I'll go to Kola, and then, work my way back. I would say Lagos is already doing quite a lot. I think I see online from the food banks, and I think most recently, almost everyone feels the price of food, and so food security is becoming a more important conversation. What role do you think technology can play in delivering a near-term impact in terms of food security, specifically for Lagos State?
So I think food security is linked very strongly with job security, right? Because if you have money, you can afford food. And so I think Lagos thinking about its role of not just how it's going to feed 30 million people, but how it's going to employ 30 million people is so critical. So I think fundamentally, Lagos needs to take a key from what other governments around the world have done. If you look at Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, China, how they've worked to ensure that the companies and the organizations in their mega cities have supply chains that thrive, that are highly efficient, and so that those organizations have a competitive advantage and are able to actually reduce their operating costs, improve profitability, be more successful, and employ a larger pool of folks. So I think that's step one. Now, clearly, after ensuring that folks have money in their hands, in their pockets, you have to ensure availability, right? And I think the availability piece, I think the government has taken a lot of steps to try to promote availability. I think there's opportunity to to incentivize investment by the private sector. I think oftentimes governments sometimes make investments that are well-meaning, but may actually have a side effect of crowding out private investment. So thinking about how they can actually create more of an enabling environment for to encourage investment by private sector in the food systems. Because creating food systems for 30 million people, I don't think we fully comprehend what that actually looks like. How many cows need to move into Lagos on a daily basis, as an example. So that would be my thoughts.
All right. I mean, thank you very much for for sharing that. I think you emphasized, just like during your presentation, on the need for partnerships. Most importantly, I think for Anna too, would be great to learn from you. One, which of the core digital public infrastructures would you recommend that Lagos State prioritizes now? If you had your choice, which would you say they should prioritize? And more importantly, how are you thinking about regulation of emerging technologies from a government or public sector adoption standpoint?
Okay, thank you. Let me start from the last question first. So at MTech, we like to believe that we're at the intersection of innovation and regulation. So just because we see how regulators are trying to catch up right now with innovation. And by the way, our problem in Lagos is not innovation. That is not our problem at all. So well done to Lagos State. Because I sit in meetings where countries are telling us we can't justify a sandbox because we don't have that level of innovation, right? So one, apart from if Lagos State wants to prioritize something, you could buy a sandbox from us. That's the first thing. But as well as the first thing maybe I would say is, what's the digital identity? How are we tracking digital identity? How are we tracking payment interoperability? And that's more or less saying, how is payments transparent in Lagos State? How do people trust the system? Do we know the users we have in the States? Because the truth is, you can't build a digital infrastructure if you don't know who the users. You can't provide any sign of service if you don't know the people you're providing the service for, right? Also, how are we seeing data exchange? One of the major problems we're seeing with regulators in other countries, and even in Nigeria as well, is the lack of regulators speaking among themselves. So we have different agencies covering something similar, but not speaking to each other. So everybody's data and information is in silos. So it doesn't help the person trying to innovate, which is the ecosystem. It doesn't help the regulators as well. So just understanding that we need to at least learn to speak to each other, whatever solution you want to provide. And then, like I said, get a sandbox. The thing about sandboxes is that it helps innovation come to market faster. So being able to have a safe, secure space that the regulators can see what it is, create policies, create frameworks around the innovation that the ecosystem wants to bring into markets, and being able to work with them safely to make sure that they're bringing these things correctly. So that would be what I would look at.
Thank you very much. I think what's been quite interesting is, across board there's been unique opinions, but more importantly also, there's a lot of alignment in terms of what everyone has said. Of course, your sandbox would sit within the fusion center, and I see a lot of synergy. My PS, from a government standpoint, can you tell us what today Lagos State is focusing on from a policy reform standpoint, as a key that would be a key driver for Lagos State's smart city ambitions, as well as also what type of collaboration models, because there's a lot of private sector players in the room today, a lot of startups, how can they collaborate with you to achieve this smart city objective and this smart city goals that Lagos State has?
Okay, thank you very much. So I mean, I'm going to rub off on what she has just said, talking about the siloed data that we have and all. So in Lagos State government, what we're trying to do right now is to institutionalize the enterprise architecture. Now, what we're building is like a framework that guides how government collects data. So you talked about siloed data. The whole idea is that we need to have a unified digital ecosystem in Lagos State. So it's not about different MDAs owning their own data. It's one data for Lagos State government and all. So the enterprise architecture would solve all of that because it kind of provides the framework on how data is collected. And then that now runs into how data is used, data governance. Because you have all this data out there, you're collecting all this data, you want it to be in one single ecosystem. Now, what's the governance structure behind it? How is the data used? How is it collected? How is it disposed of? The people that own the data, how do you get their consent on what you're going to do with the data? So we have different policies that we've developed in Lagos State right now. We have about 18 policies right now governing behind the enterprise architecture framework, and that helps to define every single thing around the usage of data, data collection and all. And then you spoke about the sandbox as well. And that's one of the outcomes of the enterprise architecture. So we will have the last stage that we are right now is that we're going to create this sandbox where you have real data for innovators to actually use to build certain solutions or applications. So you're actually building solutions to real life problems, not you don't build me a solution and tell me to go find the problem that's going to solve, that solution is going to solve. It's about building solutions that actually exist for problems that actually exist. So that's part of what we're doing right now in Lagos State government. It's one of the things, the enterprise architecture, and then building trust. That's why we have the lag idea as well. If we don't know who you are, we can't serve you. We need to know who is in Lagos, where you are, and then you answer the data sets that we have. So we have certain questions that would help us to, build solutions to problems that exist in the different localities. So access to all of this, and the commissioner spoke about the unified platform, which is like our website really. But right now it's now service driven. It's citizen friendly. It's the whole idea is that we must be able to answer every single question that a citizen or a resident of Lagos State would have in order to settle in Lagos, or to work in Lagos, or to live in Lagos, to go to school in Lagos. So it's not just for the educated, it's for the uneducated, the underserved, and all, so that all your questions can be answered, and then all our data are interoperable. So you don't need to go to LIRS in order to fetch your TIN. The whole idea is that once you want to access a service, put in your unique ID, which is your LASRA registration. You should be able to fetch all other information that will be needed or required for you to access the service that you're looking for. Just trying to put everything in one nutshell because I'm watching the timer.
We would love to help you build the sandbox, man.
I'm sorry?
I was saying we would love to help you build the sandbox. Shameless plug.
Thanks. Really, really exciting panel, from Prof talking about people-led innovation, to Finfolu speaking about having that, centralized fusion and data, data set that helps with decision making, to call us, viewpoint around supply chain and encouraging investment of private sector to ensure that we can actually, and also just economic enablement of people to ensure that they can afford food security is really achieved. And, of course, Anna spoke about the sandbox, and most importantly, and our PS shared some of the 18 policies, that are backing Lagos State's enterprise architecture. And it's great to learn that, some of what Anatu said around the need for interoperability is already being worked on. And, we're looking forward to seeing next year some of this interoperability and, data exchange layer power a lot of the innovations we're going to see here next year. Thanks to the AOT team for the opportunity to share some of these insights. And do have the rest. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we put our hands together for our panelists? Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on building tomorrow's Lagos, leveraging innovative technologies for a sustainable city. Can we please put our hands together for them one more time? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
And that concludes the second plenary discussion